Hello. My, I am currently a cybersecurity instructor and teach the labs at my local college. So if you clicked on this, I would assume that you basically have some type of interest in how Trojans and viruses and what we now consider to just be all-encompassing malware work, and how attackers and malicious actors can actually use these to not only spy on what the victim is doing, but how we can obfuscate it, how we can hide programs inside of malware, and everything else. So, hopefully, over the next little bit, I can show you a few of those things and I can answer a few of those questions. Now, the first thing we should talk about is, well, what is malware? And basically, malware is just any software that its only design is to cause disruption, to leak private information, to garner unauthorized access to any information or system. But we can also use malware to actually just deprive the user from accessing that information in general. We can implement viruses that make their computer or system completely unusable. So if you will look, right now I'm actually inside of my virtual machine, and I'll be running multiple things. I have my Windows 10, I have a Parrot Security, which is my Linux OS, and we also have two versions of Windows Server. Lower than that, of course, I do have Ubuntu and an Android emulator, but we won't be using those too much inside of this course. For anyone out there who currently is using Linux and maybe is using Kali or any type of Arch Linux that's based on cybersecurity and penetration testing, you should have the necessary tools to perform anything we're about to do. I will not be telling you where to find the live viruses that I'm going to be using, but with a little bit of know how and a little bit of initiative, any of these tasks can be easily completed in your own home lab, which I must stress, do these in a home lab, do not do these to your active computer. Right now, I'm using this sandbox. The sandbox is not bridged to my local network, so everything happening inside of here is very much contained. So, with that being said, one of the first things that I would like to show is how you can actually gain control over a victim machine using the NJRat. Now, RAT, of course, standing for Remote Access Trojan, is just a way to infect the target machine to gain administrative access. RATs help an attacker to remotely access and complete GUI control, which stands for Graphical User Interface. So if you hear me talking about GUI, we're basically talking about what we're looking at here, just the graphical interface. With this, we can actually perform screen capture, we can do camera capture, we can execute code and key logging, do password sniffing, registry management, basically anything malicious that an end user would not like to happen to their machine, we can implement. Now, NJRat, of course, is something that has been patched um, with multiple updates to Windows. It's a fairly old resource, but with the Windows 10 machine I will be using here, it is still a very viable way to actually command and control the machine. So with that, I'm going to log into my Windows machine. And if you'll notice, of course, with it being a sandbox, you will not see the full screen. There's really nothing I can do about that, so we'll both just have to kind of get along with what we're given. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that my PC is discoverable. I want to be able to see other computers, and I want other computers to see me. After that, basically all we have to do is we're going to navigate to my folder that I have mapped to all these machines, which just has my CEH tools in it. All of these labs that I'm hopefully going to put out, all mapped to the CEH version 11 practical exam. If you yourself are wanting to study for the CEH, or if you're just interested in any type of penetration testing content, I greatly would urge you to go out, spend the money. You get 6 months to access all of these labs. And if you're have a little bit of ingenuity, you can actually download all of these tools for yourself. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to malware threats, scroll up, and basically we're going to go into our Trojan types and we're going to go to remote access Trojan. Go to our NJRat, and from here we can go ahead and execute NJRat. I'll pull this up so we can hopefully see it. I might have to do a little bit down here. We're going to leave the default port as is. We could obviously change it and do whatever type of attack we wanted to. Say if we wanted to attack proxy at 8080, or we wanted to attach it to any type of MySQL if the server was running extensive MySQL, so we could use 1433, we could use 3306, we could attack Postgres at 5432. But for here, we're just going to leave it as is. So I'm going to drag this up. Now you'll notice that my firewall is turned off. All virtual machines right now in this lab will have their firewall turned off. And that's just because with the updates to Windows and Windows Defender, it is it's not impossible. Nothing's impossible, but it is much more difficult to inject these remote access Trojans and everything else. I could still do it and I could show you that, but I want this to be as real as possible. So after doing that, we're actually just going to click on this builder, and you'll notice it's going to ask me my host. Right now it's configured as a loopback address, and so all I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to what my lab is actually running, which I'm running on a 10 network. And so right here, this is this Windows machine, this 10.10 network. So I will save this, and I will save it to the desktop. And basically, I'll just name this test.exe. And there we go. You have now successfully basically created a remote access Trojan, which is basically all it takes. This is what most people would consider a script kiddie type of access. It doesn't take a lot of know-how, but from here, I'm actually just going to get in, well, not like that, but I'm going to get into my server. And what I will actually do, let me make one adjustment. Where we saved this to the desktop, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And I'm just going to place it right at the bottom of this CEH tools. The reason why is I actually have this mapped to every other machine. And so when I do click back on my 2016 server, it will just make the implementation of this lab a little bit quicker. I'll just skip a few steps. And so after that, I will also copy it in this lab. And I'm going to paste it to this desktop. And so now I'm basically acting as both the attacker and the victim. So what I would do is I would normally put this inside of a document. I could set this as a batch file to where somebody opens up a Word document or Excel document and it would automatically run in shadow mode. Or, of course, I could just set this as a web server and use things like Zap and make sure that no matter who tries to go to a website, I would be monitoring it. I could set myself as the proxy, and I could actually change the web server that they use and the website that they go to execute this. We're not going to do anything that crazy in this. I might post another video about session hijacking, but for now, we're just going to go ahead and execute this. So I'm going to double click there. And after that, it should be running. You do see the toggle wheel is spinning. I am on my laptop, So it might take a second considering I'm running all of these virtual machines, but let's check back. So the first thing you'll notice is we do have an IP address here. It is 10.10.10.16. The user is administrator, and the PC OS that it's running is Server 2016, which also says here Windows Server 2016 Standard. There's no CAM operating. It tells me their ping, and it also tells me what their active window is. So with all of this, we can actually establish a persistent connection. As soon as they run this executable, they're basically locked in. They're basically giving me complete control. There is one way to get rid of this, and they would have to actually go inside of Task Manager. They would have to look for the server executable, and they would have to stop it. So with this, we can do a couple different things, one of which is just right-clicking here, and as you'll see, we can do a lot of stuff. We can automatically attack their NTLM and try to brute force their passwords. But I think the first thing we're going to do is just go to Manager, and we are actually inside of their file manager. And I don't have to explain to you why this is a big deal, why this could be extremely malicious. From here, I could actually just delete their entire operating system. But what we'll do is we'll just kind of click on Program Data for now, and we can see everything that's going on. So from here, this is where we could establish even more persistence. We could set a logon script. So even if an administrator got wise to this, and they did reset the server service, we could just make this run anytime someone logs on. So a lot of manipulation can be done from here. We can also go to Process Manager, and from here we could kill basically anything we wanted to. So as you see, there's not exactly a lot running right now, but if I was to come back to my server and maybe just run a good Google Chrome tab, we can come back to Windows 10. We can look for our Google Chrome, and we can kill it. So now when we travel back to server, I'm sure whoever the end user is will just be extremely confused on what is happening at this moment. We can also go to connections. Of course, here we're just looking at who they're communicating to, which mostly is just going to be the 10.10.16 network and their loopback. But at the same time, we can kill these connections and make sure that they aren't communicating with anyone we don't want them to. So furthermore, of course, we can go in and we can change their registry. We can do local machine or current user. If we are logged on as administrator, we could easily come in here, change up the administrator's settings, which we'd come here and we'd do like a group policy /force, and we could really push some very negative changes throughout the system. So speaking of remote shell, this itself sometimes doesn't like to work. I don't know if it's my environment or the service itself, but let's see if we can get some IP information. Oh, great. So you'll notice I have all of their information. I can see that they're connected via Ethernet right now. I can see basically their domain, their host name, where they're using their DNS. If I can see that this is a static address. So all really important information for anyone who's trying to maliciously attack someone, or more so, anyone who's trying to take their CEH exam and needs to actually perform some good reconnaissance and footprinting. I know this isn't exactly a step one because I'm already attacking this surface, but it's always good to continually get information from the target that you're attacking, even if you're already inside of it. We have established persistence, and now we can actively start pivoting and we can start looking at who they are connected to. So, furthermore, after we've done a few of these things, we can actually come back out here and we can choose to run file. Now we can run file from link. Of course, you see that we can run file from disk, and we can just type in a good old batch file. I'm not going to show any of the scripting at the moment, but I'll leave that to your imagination. And if you do decide to play around with this program, I highly advise you coming in here and playing around with each of those as well. What we're going to click on now is just remote desktop. Now this isn't the normal remote desktop, being that RDC normally will black out the user's screen, but at this moment we can just watch what they're doing. With that being said, there are ways to actually take over this machine, and that's by clicking this little arrow here and choosing mouse and keyboard. Now my mouse is the one moving around, and my keyboard would be the one typing stuff. So I can easily come here. I can do the unthinkable. I can set Internet Explorer as their default browser, which, I mean, if somebody hacks me and sets Internet Explorer, I would just throw my machine away. But that's me. So we'll be nice and we won't set that as their default browser, and we'll close out of Mozilla as well. And so that's just a quick way to actually interact with that. In the same way that we just did this, we can right click, we can do a good keylogger, we can look at their camera if it were so active, and we could do microphone. Now if I go to remote cam, it's not going to show anything because there isn't a camera plugged into this virtual machine, and the microphone is disabled, so no reason exactly to do either of those. What we will do is we will go to keylogger. Now at the moment it should be empty, but if I go back to my server, let's just say I create a new text file, and as most people do, the first thing I'm going to do is type in my credit card number, which is, I got very lucky. I have an excellent credit card number. Please do not use it to buy Netflix because I promise it won't work. So I'll do that. I'll go ahead and save this file. Saving it will have no won't make any difference as far as what the attacker will see in this case. But you'll notice that after clicking refresh, we now have access to everything that was typed on that computer. After keylogger, one of my favorite things to do would actually be just to come here. We can make our name whatever we want, but what we're going to say is, hey, I have control over your computer. Oh, even hackers don't like grammar mistakes, so I'll go back and fix that. Please pay me 1 Bitcoin to unlock. We'll assume this is before the great bubble pop that has happened over the last month, and let's send this. Now when we go back to our server, it's here, but the thing is they actually cannot close this. I can click this all day. I can go to Task Manager and try to close it. It's not going to go anywhere. So of course the victim's going to say, hey, please stop. And we're going to see that on our attacking machine in virtually real time. So after that, we can basically just let them go, let them think that, hey, everything's fine. We have gotten rid of your virus. Now, what's going to happen 9 times out of 10 is someone's going to see that message and they're going to say, oh, I have been hacked. I'm, of course, going to just restart my computer. And that's fine. Let them restart it. You'll notice that the current session has disappeared. It is deleted. And so basically, all we're going to do is just wait for them to switch back to the machine. And so that should have been long enough. And it might take a second. Very exhilarating stuff. What I think I'm going to do, I will pause this recording and we will actually come back as soon as that loads back up. So, okay. So my machine is loading up. I wanted to start it a little bit before the machine loaded, just so you can see that the machine has completely shut down. It is restarting. I didn't perform any movie magic. I didn't, in the background, reinstall this trojan and re-click it. We are going to do this from the point that the machine actually loads. And with it being a virtual machine and it using server, it does take a second, but I think when it comes to hacking something, this is one of the more exciting things. When you see your connection has went unusable, and you know, okay, a few minutes goes by, and this person is going to attempt to log back in, and at this moment, they probably think they're good. Most end users at this point aren't even going to, oh, of course I spelled it wrong. Most end users aren't even going to tell their system administrator, because it's pretty much been proven that when people are hacked at an end user role, especially a help desk or just a normal worker, they're embarrassed and they don't want to tell their administrator, hey, I clicked something malicious or I've done something wrong. So basically, we're back into our attacker station and we're just going to wait. It may take 30 seconds to a minute, but the connection is going to establish itself. I do not have to get them to re-execute it. In fact, one of the things I would have done inside of here, you'll see that we have the connection again. I would have went to manager, I would have went to my file manager on their machine, and I would have made sure that I come to desktop and I would have deleted this. I would have made sure that when they restart their computer, there was no actual physical proof of this file ever being on the machine. So now let's show you how to actually break it. What they would need to do is they would need to come down here. They would need to go to their task manager and go to processes, and they would need to find, I probably passed it, the good old server 32. And as soon as they end this task, they are actually going to break our connection. The thing is that most users just don't know how to do that. So that is actually going to wrap up our quick explanation of NJRat and how to use it. I am going to make a few more videos in this series of how to hide malware and how to do a little bit more fun stuff with viruses, as far as making an end user's computer go completely crazy. I can make the mouse jump everywhere, say that they move it to the left, I can make it do circles to the right. A lot of stuff that I consider pretty fun and a little bit silly. Not exactly your run-of-the-mill um, attacker's virus, but still fun stuff, still fun to learn. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please continue on in the series. And if you do, I'll see you there.